Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tim Hetherington. I'm the Director of Applied Engineering Design. We are a small engineering consultancy doing general work based in Edinburgh. We've got offices in Glasgow and Bath. The company's been going since 2008. My first year was kind of testing the water. I worked primarily for one client, and then I grasped the nettle and set up properly on my own in 2009. The company now has 9 staff, 2 consultants, 3 officers. The reason I'm here today is because 2 months ago we ran out of money, and which was obviously very difficult. We couldn't pay the staff, and the day after that, an email landed in my inbox about this conference, and I thought, well, this could be useful experience for everybody. So I rang up Rachel and we had a chat, and I suggested I come and talk about all the things I've done wrong. So the first part of this talk is exactly that. It's fairly no punches pulled account of everything I've done wrong in the last 8 years. Then there'll be a short section about what I've done right, and it is shorter. And then there'll be a general section on things that I think are a good idea. So, what I'd like to do is get a quick poll to grasp where you're all at. So, just so I can perhaps tweak things as we're going along. How many of you are not currently working as on your own or in your own companies and are thinking about starting up? So about a quarter. People who are working in a small practice and want to grow. So that's pretty much the rest of you. Okay, that's great. Thanks very much. That's certainly true. So the first section's about business aspects. I think one thing I didn't do when I started out was make an honest appraisal of who I am and what I'm going to bring to it all and what my suitability is as a person. In some ways, I'm not really suited to being a business person. I'm far too casual about money, and I hate confrontation, and I've no business experience. That's pretty dodgy ground, really, when you think about it. One thing that didn't make a difference is that I suffer really bad social anxiety. If you going to the pub, no, really. Nowadays I can't do it. When I was a lot younger, I used to drink quite a bit. I think a lot of people do that to cover my anxiety, and I managed to bluff my way through. These days I just can't do that. You'd think that would put me in a bad position to be in a client-facing role, and indeed stood in front of all of you here today. But one thing I found out about myself was that I can perform. I got this ability to just turn it on and go in front of a room of people and perform. I'm nervous, and you can probably tell that, but I can still do it. And I can do that in front of clients as well. So perhaps that's a good thing, but it's something that you definitely need to think about whether you have, if you're thinking about going into a position where you be a business person, trying to win work, trying to imbue people with a sense of confidence that you can deliver what they want. You need to be technically confident as well as competent. There's no point in being competent if you can't put across that as a sense of confidence in what you can do and what you can deliver. You also need an ability to lead, and that's a really complicated thing. You can learn how to lead. There are elements of it that either you have or you don't, but you can cover up for that. These things are really easy to find on the internet, so I'm not going to bore you with a thousand ways in which you need qualities to lead, but a few would be personal confidence, the ability to make hard choices. If you hide from hard choices, forget it. You'll get nowhere. You have to earn respect, and you have to have some vision and be able to project that vision to people, so that you can lead them and so that they can believe in you. A lot of it is about getting people to believe in you, your staff and your clients. You need to be able to get the best out of people and find out what that best is, what they're good at, and draw that out of them. but also recognise what people's fundamental limitations. I used to think that I could teach any reasonably able graduate engineer to do all of the tasks. Then I started sitting on the research, and I was finding it hard, I must admit. Then I started sitting on the research panel here at the Istructe, which is predominantly staffed, I'll say, by people in academia. And I had this conversation with a few of them, and they just laughed at me. They said, no, Tim, that's not how it is. Not everyone can do everything. Some people just can't do stuff. And I found that out with some of the people that I employed. I'm not going to talk about individuals, but there were some people who couldn't grasp certain aspects of structural design. It didn't matter how many different ways I explained it to them or how many systems and processes I gave them to work through. They just didn't get it. They eventually could follow a routine to get to a result, but they didn't really understand if that result was right or not. So that was the thing I learned. Getting the best out of people, but understanding the limitations as well. Being a helper is important. And something I found online as well was serving a greater cause. The sense of serving a greater cause. That was quite an interesting one. I wonder how many of us have that lost in the daily schlep of structural engineering. But I think it is important. So, motivations. Confused motivations. What are your motivations for wanting to start up your own practice? Can anyone give me an example of why they want to start their own practice? Okay, that's a good one. Yeah. Anyone else?
Control.
Control is a really interesting and important one. Yeah. Being able to do what you want, the way you want it done.
I did it quite late because I wanted to work over being 65.
Mm-hmm.
And thought, well, nobody's going to employ me. I employ myself.
I'd have employed you. Half my employees are over 65. Motivations are complex and varied. The important thing is that you consider your own motivations and be honest with yourself about them. Because if you go in on the basis of a false motivation, then you'll quite quickly come to a shuddering halt. My own was that I wanted to, and I don't think I'll be confessing this in front of a room full of structural engineers. I didn't want to be a structural engineer. I wanted to be a musician, and for the last 18 years, I've been fascinated by electronic music, and I stopped doing engineering in 2000 and again in 2001, and tried to make a career in electronic music. I didn't get anywhere with it, because the sort of stuff I liked creating wasn't commercial, and because I wasn't very good at it, maybe, didn't have enough talent, but also because music's free these days. There's no way to monetize it. So I ended up back in engineering. And actually going back to it, I appreciated it more, I think. I saw lots of good things in it in terms of security and achievement and personal development that I hadn't seen before. So that was quite positive. But I quit again in 2008 and went back to working part-time in engineering because I just felt I had to grasp the musical nettle, if you like. But of course, that was the worst time I could have picked to go part-time in engineering. And not long after that, all the work dried up and I lost my job. But during the intervening period, I'd kind of had a real thorough glimpse into how one runs one's own business. And I thought, yeah, I could give that a go. So I started working on my own in my own business in a room with a computer and a printer. And it was tough. It was really tough to make a living. And as a result, I ended up just working all the hours that God sent and not doing any music. And here I am 10 years later with 3 offices and 10 staff and turning over £600,000 a year. So that was a journey. So in a sense, I had no choice. I did what I had to do. But that was my motivation. It could be ambition or curiosity, or it could be an obvious path. Some people just have that certainty that that's what they want to do. Okay, let's talk about flawed business models. I know it's really hackneyed. It's the sort of stuff that the bank manager says to you when you go and ask for an overdraft. But you have to have a business model. You have to have some conceptual model for what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, how you're going to monetize it, how quickly the money's going to come in, how quickly it's going to go out, where it's going to go. Does it work? Does it actually work? Does anybody want what you want to do? To an extent, nobody wanted what I want to do. People, I live in Scotland, it's cost. It's so cost-driven. There's only 5 million people. There isn't that much fantastic work available. There's a lot of engineers, loads of architects, but you know, it's kind of a bit of living in Scotland is almost a lifestyle choice if you're a structural engineer. The market isn't big enough to sustain the kind of work that I wanted to do. This is not a slideshow. I'm not going to show you slides, but there'll be a picture later on of the kind of thing that I love doing. There isn't enough of it. My business model was rubbish, and I've paid the price for that. Really have paid the price for it. So you have to have sound financial projections based on realistic returns and hours. I've worked 100 hours a week, made myself ill mentally, physically. It's not worth it, and I know that now, and yeah, we'll come back to that. Clients, have you got any? People who are looking to start up, have you got your eye on any clients? No clients, no money, no company, no nothing. The most successful people I know who've started their own business have done it while they're working for their last employer. They've just gone all out doing homers, and they've built up a thing outside of their day job that they then flipped over to. The people who've done it like me because they had to, or because they started from nothing, literally from nothing, it's been a hard road because you just don't have that body of clients and that body of income. It's very difficult. So my advice would be build up a client base before you do it if you can. So that was that. Inadequate time and cost controls. When you start up, Excel is your friend. You will do everything in Excel. You'll keep lists of your hours, invoices, who's paid what, who hasn't paid what. And if you're good at programming Excel, those can develop into quite sophisticated systems. But we hit a limit of what we could run with that with about 3 people. And then we went to a thing called Timeless Time and Expense, which is an American product, and it was good. That got us up to about 5 people. Then that hit the skids. And from there on, if you need something proper, there's a lot of software out there. I did a lot of research. I love software. I love computers. We'll come back to that as well. We picked a system called BillQuick, BQE, and it's industrial grade. You can run a company of any size using it. And our cost recovery increased by 15% overnight. It was worth every penny. It's paid for itself so many times over. So if you're going to get serious, you need to get serious with your time and expense control software. Never mind your project management software. I'm sure that one there, I'm sure it's fantastic. But I mean, you can run an engineering company my size with Trello. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Trello. It's a pretty good program. It's about the money. This is all about money. Your employees' motivations won't be the same as your motivation. You'd like to think you haven't got to watch them, but you really have, because fundamentally they're there for the paycheck at the end of the month. There are exceptions. There are employees who just really want to do a good job. It's a matter of self-respect or whatever their motivations are. But in the main, it's about going to work, getting the pay, renovating their car, spending time with their kids, having life outside work. That means that they lean in a different direction to you in terms of their attitude to time and expenses. So you've got to keep tabs on them. You only realize that when it's too late and something goes wrong and you haven't got the data you need in order to build a client or speak to the employee about what they're doing or dig down into the data. You have to have the data. This is the biggest one. And this is kind of where it all went wrong for me. We had a run of technically very challenging projects and a run of projects on which things went wrong. I don't mind admitting that. And I was the only person in the company who could solve them, partly because of technical level, partly because I'm free. I'm the director. I pay myself what I choose to pay myself, so my time can be free. Also because I didn't feel it was right to lumber employees with these problems, which were not of their making. That meant I didn't pay sufficient attention to new work generation. No one else did either. That's a topic in itself, is making everyone do new work generation. So we ran out of work, ran out of money. It's boring, it's business, it's not structural engineering, it's not why you went to university. You're a designer. You don't want to be spending time drinking endless flat whites and trying to persuade people to give you work. But you don't have a choice, you've got to do it. There's also a natural cycle that takes place when you're a small practitioner, in that you can't do everything at once. So you tend to get into cycles of doing work and then seeking work and then doing work and then seeking work. And this plays havoc with your cash flow, because it means your cash flow is really lumpy. And that's just stressful. Some people I know put a day a week aside for new work generation, but that annoys their clients because they can't get hold of them on a Monday. And if you're fundamentally client responsive, it's pretty hard to disappear for 1 or 2 days a week without annoying people, or without kind of failing your own mission statement in a way. So you have. I don't know how to crack that one. Now I just stand over my staff and make them make phone calls and go for lattes, but which does work. I think one thing I've found is that the most unexpected people are good at it and like doing it. People like me who are socially awkward, they can actually do it. They find something in themselves. I think it's format. Give someone a format to work within, and surprising people will come forward and occupy that format and go out and do it. It's a bit like I give people scripts for phone calls. Right, dial that number, say that, and they'll go and do it. And they'll get into it and they'll adapt it a little bit. So yeah, it's kind of working with what you've got, really. Building a thing rather than a business. I'm so guilty of this. I wanted to. I now realize that I wanted to build what I thought a really high quality consultancy should look like, in terms of systems and processes and output and structure and how it did the work and how it delivered the work and how it was perceived and seen, and really a kind of an example. I had a really, and it is good. What I've made is good, but it's not a business because it doesn't work. It doesn't earn money. So in a sense, it's a failed business that I'm in the process of restructuring at the moment. I built a thing. I didn't build a business. I'm proud of the thing I built, but it's not a business. It's something else. I don't know quite what it is. Not for profit? Charity? Yeah, maybe. Some of those things. Businesses make money. Everything else is secondary. If you think anything else, then you're not for business. This is capitalism. This is raw, hard capitalism. And my 100 hours a week, that's just a product of the system. That's what you have to do. This is, you start to get into the philosophy of 21st century capitalism at this point, where if you want to start your own practice, you will become a victim of capitalism. And it's brutal. It really is. I had a desire to create a vision or something, and that really suffered on collision with the real world. And I suffered, my wife suffered, and everyone suffered. So be careful. Next thing is, these two things kind of relate. A fascination with process over output. I'm really interested in process, the process by which projects are delivered, designs are delivered, the internal processes of the company. I'm really interested in that, I found out, which was a disaster, because I should have just been focusing on getting the jobs out the door. That's what my competitors do. And so a fascination with process was part of my downfall. Great processes, wow, fantastic processes, but and good processes for getting the most out of limited resources. But I was too interested in it all, and I should have spent more time doing work myself, actually. Spent more time being an engineer rather than a process creator. Yeah, that's pretty tough to admit. fascination with these three things relate. I mentioned it before. I love IT. I love computers, computer programming. I always have done since I was a boy. There are loads of opportunities for computer programming if you run your own practice. Everything from the timesheet system to automatic Excel spreadsheets for designing this, that, and the other. And I live in Scotland. We have design certification. You can develop a really nice design certification system if you put your mind to it. And it eats time like nothing else, and it eats my time. And I should be out there designing nuts and bolts and beams, because I'm very quick at that, being 48 and having done it for a long time. And I'm not. I'm messing around with computers. And that was the wrong decision. I should have found the correct level and stopped there. And the correct level was probably about where all my competitors sit. And they probably contract out 90% of their IT and jog along using TEDs and Master Series and not having their own in-house glorious singing, dancing things. But it's what I wanted to do. I did what I wanted to do, and it wasn't successful. You see how all these things relate. Next is creeping overheads. So you take your eye off the ball, and before you know it, your software costs have crept up because you really fancy buying that piece of software, and your IT's crept up because you needed help to run it all. So you contracted that out, and your insurance has gone up because it does year upon year upon year. And you spent loads of money on promoting stuff, and you're a tiny company with 3 offices, with 3 people in each office. That's wildly inefficient. They all have individual overheads. Things like printers. Printers are expensive. Ink's really expensive. Professional memberships at £500 a pop. Pensions. Oh my goodness. Attracting staff these days means you have to offer them 10% matched pension. It's colossal. I mean, pensions are cost efficient in terms of paying people because it comes off your bottom line. But man, that's a lot of money to be putting at people. National insurance. You look at your wage bill and you think, oh yeah, that's the wage bill. And then your office manager shows you the inland revenue bill for the month. And it's 35% on top. We're employing 8 people. £32,000 a month we have to invoice just to break even. Can you imagine? That's hungry. That's a really hungry thing to have to feed. And so if your productivity drops off, you're absolutely knackered. It's quite sleepless nights, believe me. Yeah. So, recruitment is time-consuming, expensive, because the agents all want paying. 30%, maybe? We don't pay that. Talk them down to 15. It's fundamentally inaccurate. Doesn't matter what a genius you are. There's no way you can tell how someone's going to perform in a job beyond the most rudimentary basics by sitting in a room with them for an hour. So unless you can actually get them in and sit them down and put them on tasks for a week, you're going to have no idea how this person's going to really perform. So it's always a bit of a shot in the dark. It takes about 6 months to find out what someone's really going to be able to do for you. By that time, their probationary period's probably run out and you're stuck with them. And even then, you may still need that person to just churn stuff out in their own way, at their own pace. Normally, it's not their fault. It's your fault. You employed the wrong person, and you have to really accept responsibility for that. As part of this, and we've just been through this, you run out of money, you've got to get rid of people. So you do the right thing, and you follow the ACAS small business guidelines for redundancies. So you ask for VRs, and you may or may not get any. And then you have what's called a consultation process, where everyone gets to put their ideas forward on how you can reduce costs. And no one wants to take a salary cut, believe me. So then you go into compulsory redundancies. Meanwhile, everyone's got the fear and gone out and got themselves new jobs, so you lose control of the process. And then exactly what happened to us, that's exactly what happened to me and to us, was that I tried to do the right thing by everybody and by the book, and the combination of people who resigned and left me with 2 offices that didn't function and which could not be amalgamated. That was a major headache. So, and I'm still in the process of trying to solve that without just going out and re-employing people, which I can't afford to do because we haven't got any money. So you end up, if you lose control of your reorganization, you can actually lose your company. So my advice there is pay people to go away. Do a deal, have a protected conversation, get an employment lawyer, decide who you want to leave, pay them to go away. It will save you money in the long run. That's advice from the heart. So, technical aspects, conflicts of interest. You never know you're in one until it's got you by the neck. After a while, you get better at spotting them coming. The key ones, in my experience, are having 2 clients. That's somehow, through some bizarre quirk of circumstance, you end up in a job. Let's say you would do a lot of work for a steel fabricator, and then you end up on a job where you're the consulting engineer, and that steel fabricator is working on it, and you're also doing their steel connection design. And they screw something up on the project, and you know it, and you've got to call them out on it. It's going to cost them £50,000 to put right, and they owe you £40,000. Nice. The other difficult one for engineers in Scotland is design certification, where basically you're the building control officer and you have a higher duty. Your duty is to public safety and to compliance with the building regulations. But your client wants to cut a corner. Your client's a contractor who's filled in a doorway with timber stud work rather than block work, and the building's going to fall down. It's 6 months since the job was complete. The client's moved back in. They've got to go back in and rip the shop apart, and everyone hates you. What do? Well, you make them go back in and rip the shop apart, but it's not easy. So conflicts of interest, yeah, you never really see them until they've got you by the throat. Yeah, this one. Are we? Right, okay. So you're confident and you think you can do pretty much everything, and then it all goes horribly wrong because you took on more than you could do. Usually time is a big issue in this. You thought you could do it, you knew only you could do it, and you couldn't do it in the time available, and it all goes horribly wrong. You have to watch out for hubris. Be humble, otherwise it will come and get you. Insurance, time span. Right, let's talk about collateral warranties. They're the most important thing. Collateral warranties: 6-year under contract, 12-year under deed, 15 years under common law. I'm 48, 50 next year, retiring in 15 years. I won't be signing any more collateral warranties. Got to pay the run-off insurance on them. That's true for your own PI, in that you've got to make financial provision to pay the run-off after you retire, because trying to sell a practice is a dead end. Most consulting engineering practices, smaller practices, end with the engineer retiring. It's very rare to be able to sell it, very rare to find someone who can take it over. So you've got to watch that you're not paying your run-off insurance, vast run-off insurance, until you're 80. Checking. Always get your stuff checked. You think it doesn't because you're good at what you do, but actually you're tired and you'll be making mistakes, and a different perspective is always valuable. Unlicensed software, don't do it. You never know what your employees have got on their machines. We got audited by Autodesk. That was uncomfortable. We were okay. I know people who haven't been and have been taken to court, billed for what they had, but also how long they'd had it. Bills of £100,000. It just destroy you. And Autodesk will do that. Autodesk are not nice people. What's your reply to alls? I have personally soured entire jobs with a careless reply to all. Never recovered. Spoiled my relationship with one of the best architects in Scotland, my relationship with one of the biggest, I'm not going to say who, contractors in England. and I was very stupid, very careless, didn't mean to do it, what I said was taken out of context, but ruined it. So be careful of that one. I know it's trite, but it's very, very true. IT backups that don't work. You buy your backup software, you install it, you plug in a USB drive, you think you're protected. No, you're not protected until you've tried to restore your data from your backup. So don't just assume that it's doing its job. Some of the best backup solutions out there don't work when you actually try and restore. The built-in Microsoft ones that come with Microsoft servers, if it runs out of space on the external USB drive, it just goes back to the beginning, deletes the first data set to create more room for itself. Deletes the first data set, there's no context for what comes after. We lost 12 months of data. That was 2017. Got no backups for 2017. It's all gone. And it wasn't our fault. It's a feature. So you need to make sure that you can do what's called a bare metal recovery and a full data recovery from your backups. Don't lose your office. The company that, while all this redundancy stuff was going on, the people that own the building that we are in decided they wanted to sell the building. So that's us out in our area. We have no office. Can't do anything about it. Got to go and find a new office now. How am I doing? There we are. That's it. I'll stop there.